Bonjour everyone and welcome back. So part 2 of my recent edition. So if you haven't seen part 1, link will be put in description and whatever. So we're gonna start with, so this part 2 gonna be only about vintage Majorette. So we're gonna start with this Q1. So these are two Ford van I should say. One from the USA, so the Ford Econoline, and the Ford Transit, and both are emergency type of vehicle. So we're gonna start with this one, the Ford Transit, in a police livery. It's a sonic flasher, which means that it used to do light and sound, but obviously since this thing is 30 years old or something like that, it doesn't do its thing anymore, but that's okay. Now, the usual version of that casting without the light and sound thing usually are the sliding door. I do have an example of that sliding door. I forgot to brought it to you, but anyway. So yeah, but we still have the suspension, which I believe when it was still working would be the switch for the light and sound. So yeah, Ford Transit, and we're gonna now go on the other side of the Atlantic with the Ford Econoline. So the Ford van for the USA with opening door and lots of cargo room for put all of your stuff, or I guess in that case that would be for your stretcher, but obviously it's just a lever and a light bar on a already existing casting. Yes, so you can see Ford Econoline from the 90s, although the generation have a very long life span because they start building them in 1992, I believe, and they are still making them, although only as a chassis cab version. You cannot buy a van version of them because that's the new Ford Transit, not this one, which have took this particular spot for Ford USA, I mean. And obviously the Ford Transit have been a global van since 1965. So yeah, the first two. Then we're gonna stay with van, but we're gonna go back to France, as I told you in first part. So now we have the Renault Kangoo version from the 90s. You can see copyright Renault 1998. The real car came out the previous year, 1997. So it's a panel van, but some minivan version came also. And I'm happy to add this to my collection because thanks to this, now I have all of the Renault Kangoo. So we have this one, the 1997 from Majorette, and we have two. No, we have this one, which came out in 2008 or 9, something like that. It was also done by Majorette, and Noreb also did that particular gen. I don't have them, but that's okay. And we have the current gen, which came out in 2020, I think, only done by Noreb. And here we have a firefighter livery. But yeah, we're gonna move to, we still have the opening hatch on this one, like that one. But anyway, so we don't have suspension on this one. That's disappointing. Actually, this one doesn't like that. I say that because in the previous video I said that over the year Norev is also starting to do some cost cutting. Yes, this should open, but I cannot do it on right now, and I don't want to break it. So yes, on this one we have a generic firefighter livery, although I should say that this particular phone number is the actual phone number for the firefighter in France. So yeah, generic but not totally. And strangely enough, we have a blue interior, and you have this very round headlight, which a bit look like the Twingo of the same type of year. You can see the interior with not much inside, which makes sense. It's a cargo van, and yes. So we're gonna stay with Renault, but move and stay in the 1990s with the Renault 19 convertible. So it's a ESSO, but it's a Majorette. It was a promotional thing, you know. At a ESSO gas station, you could have one after, I don't know, having some points or whatever, something like that. Anyway, that's not gonna matter too much because it's the same casting as the Norev, as the Majorette casting. It's just a promotional thing. So yes, the Renault 19, it was the compact sedan of the from 1987 or 88, I think, to 1995, the same category as the Volkswagen Golf. And speaking of the Golf, so usually in Europe, whatever car company try to do a car of that kind, we already have a comparison with the Golf, because the Golf is always a benchmark for that category since pretty much it came out in 1974, to be honest. And yeah, and so what you have to know is that for this particular generation, for a brief time period, even in Germany, the land of the Volkswagen Golf, this car sold pretty well. Now, to be honest, it was partially because at that time, the Golf, that was the Golf Mark II, yes, it was a bit old, and so yes, this was a bit fresher and newer, so it sold okay in the first year. Now, obviously, in France, it was a very high seller because we like our own car, obviously, like all countries do. That makes sense. And yes, so this is a convertible, but obviously most of them are hatchback, 3 or 4 door, and yeah, there were no estate, I believe. No, there weren't, but we have that convertible. And this particular version is based on the facelift. So I told you the Renault 19 first came out in 1988, yes. Facelift came around in about 1992, and that's this one, and it stopped production in 95, 96. It was replaced by the Renault Megane. We can take a look at the interior because it's a convertible. Now it's black, so it's hard to see, but from what I can tell, yes, it's pretty good. Very nice details on the seat. We have an insert for the tail light, which I tried to remember if it was a full light bar on the actual car, and I have currently married out, but maybe I'm wrong. And also what I do remember is that also, even though it's mostly red on this particular casting, on the real car it was mostly black with some red clear part. That was a trend in the 90s to have a smoked out tail light and whatever. But here at least it's already good enough that we have an insert for the tail light, even though it's not totally realistic. Anyway, and we have some clear part for the headlight part of the window piece. And we have a bit of suspension. This one didn't, I told you. This one doesn't, and this one has plenty of suspension. Anyway, we're gonna move to what to me gonna be the star of the show, and yeah, and I'm gonna tell you a lot of things because of that. So yeah, entering this. So it's a bus, as you can see, a vintage bus, and it's a French bus. So if you go underneath, you can see autobus, that's very generic, so bus. So this bus, even though they don't say on the base, but they say it on the grill, is the Saviem SC10. So what is the Saviem SC10? Basically, it's your prototypical French bus for every city from the 60s to the 90s. These were in every city town in France. Bus were this type of bus, the Saviem SC10, which was made from 1965 all the way to 1989, so almost 25 years of production, and they made around 10,000 number of these, so big number for a bus. And yes, now of these 10,000 plus of them, almost half of them were sold to Paris alone, and that's why this particular thing interests me, because I think I told you a while ago, but other than liking cars, I like public transit and bus and metro and whatever. And obviously my favorite transit network is obviously the Parisian one, because, well, that's the one which I am the most familiar with. And yeah, so the Saviem SC10. So first of all, Saviem was a French bus maker, which later on was absorbed by Renault. And I forgot to mention that this the SC10, it started its life as a Saviem, as you can see. Saviem is an acronym for something which I forgot, sorry about that. But later on it became the Renault SC10, and later on SC10R for Renault basically. And at that time they facelift it a bit, because I told you this had a very long lifespan, and they try to keep it a bit more modern, even though the bus market is not it's not like the car market, which when with consumer buying it for its styling or whatever. For buses and commercial truck, it works a bit differently, with more rationality, I would say. And yeah, so and something about interesting, so there were many different variants of the SC10 over the year, and this one have a open back. That's something which didn't happen at first. I'm gonna have to tell you a bit of a history about Parisian bus. So earlier one, basically from the earliest 20th century, because the Paris city have bus since 1906 basically. And earlier version, the only way that you could enter the bus was by the back. You had an open platform, you had to enter. There were a guy selling you a ticket, or yes, basically, and you could enter the bus and whatever. So that was how it was done for the first part of the 20th century, yes. And it was eventually phased out when a newer type of bus were introduced after World War II. So the last vintage bus with open platform were phased out in about 1971, but about few years later, when these were, like I said, all around France, basically, Saviem made a decision to make a version with an open platform, a bit as a throwback to uh, the more vintage type of bus. Now, Saviem did not existed back in the early 1900s, so basically those early open backer bus were all made by Renault. And that's funny when I say that, because as I told you, Saviem later become the bus branch of Renault, which is now called something else. Again, it's complicated, and again, I could go into much more detail, but I'm gonna try to keep it a bit light. So yeah, so that livery is a bit. I mean, it's kinda generic, but not totally enough. But not totally. I mean, because so I forgot the more important. The transport in agency in Paris is called the RATP. You know what? I'm gonna show you the logo. That's a little pins. As I told you, I'm very passionate about the subject, so I have many other items and memorabilia which I don't show on the channel because it's not the subject. But for once, I can happily tell you a bit about this. And yes, and so most of their bus were in a shade of green with another color. Now, it's not that exact shade of color, although over the year there were many different of shade of green and other color. So this one is, you know, it looks like one, but it's not the same, basically. And it doesn't say ATP anywhere, because I believe that they didn't have the license for that. Because from what I know, back in the day, the ATP was a bit, I'm gonna say that, tricky to work with them, to have to obtain a licensing. So yeah, that's why it only says autobus. It says Saviem, so I guess Majorette could have a Saviem licensing, but no ATP. So yeah, so we have two destinations. Now the Concorde is that famous part of Paris where you have that monument with the obelisk de la Concorde, yes. And Champs-Élysées, you know, that famous avenue where you can buy many things and where it's full of tourists every time of the year. And here we have the Salon de Paris, which doesn't exist, but we have the Arc de Triomphe. So yeah, it's a fictitious line, although I guess there were a couple lines which go some close to these two places, but they didn't put an actual line number, which is a bit unfortunate. But like I said, since I believe that they didn't have the license, yeah. So I'm very happy to have this casting. I forgot to mention this Majorette casting was made from 1978 all the way to 1987. There are no much version of it outside of wheel change. So this is the most common version, and yes. And they are all in that green color, which, like I said, makes sense because, as I told you, Persian birds are usually green, or at least they were usually green. Now they are light blue, although you still see some green buses from time to time, but they're gonna be phased out soon. And yeah, as I told you, this type of bus were seen in many other towns other than Paris, and obviously each town have its own color identity for their public transit, basically. So yes. And I'm gonna show you something else. Speaking of, I want to show you a modern example. I think I've showed you that previously. So this is another Parisian bus made by Siku. And here you can see a more accurate livery. You can see the logo which I've showed to you. Now it is an accurate livery, but not an accurate buses, because this is more or less based on a MAN German bus, and we didn't get that type of bus in our network. But yes, so yeah, I spent many time on talking about this because I told you I'm very passionate about that subject. I hope that you found it somewhat interesting, and yeah. So on that note, thanks for watching.